Dr. Anthony Fauci was blindsided. He thought a presidential pardon had stopped him from being hit with criminal charges. But 3 states have announced that they are opening a criminal investigation into him after his astounding Senate testimony where he pled the fifth 111 times. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he has been hit with the possibility of contempt of Congress charges, and Dr. Rand Paul, a Kentucky senator, has some bad news for him. Before we get into the story, please like, share, and comment at the Becker Brief. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci has been in the crosshairs of an investigation for potentially misleading the American people. The Florida Attorney General, James Utmeyer, said that he had a remarkable lack of candor during his Senate testimony, and the state will be seeking a potential criminal charge against him. Now, he's been joined with 2 other state attorney generals, those from Louisiana and from Alabama, and they are looking into any potential criminal wrongdoing that may have been committed by the former NIAID director, who is the top doctor in the COVID pandemic response. Well, there is some more bad news for Dr. Fauci, and he is going to be facing those contempt of Congress charges. The hearing that will vote on whether or not to pursue those charges against him will be held on Thursday morning, according to a new release. Dr. Rand Paul and others will be presiding over that committee hearing vote. And Dr. Paul also has laid open his diary. Fauci's diary was thrust into the limelight, and we got a look at the megalomaniacal, self-absorbed, narcissistic tendencies of Anthony Fauci. He had also misled the American people on a number of occasions, according to his own words, the record that he left. And he said many times that he had supported, in some sense, the lab leak theory, while also pushing the wet market theory in public. There are a number of other cases that are extremely concerning, such as the fatality rates, which he exaggerated in public, at least 10 times higher by his own words, is what he told the public than what he actually thought. And this type of alarmism fueled the hysteria and the fear-mongering of the media, which was pushing lockdowns. And we even heard from Dr. Deborah Birx, who was also on that COVID pandemic response team, that it was simply a full-on push to try to drive states to lock down. And it wasn't based on science. It was based on propaganda. That's not her words. That's my analysis of what was going on. And it was an election year hijinks. It led to the laying of the groundwork for a lot of states, particularly swing states, to implement rules, in some cases without actually changing the state constitution. And this was a matter of contention that was brought up in Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's case that was submitted to the Supreme Court and effectively dismissed without even a hearing. And this is just one of a number of cases that were dismissed out of court. Well, hopefully, these cases that are being brought against Dr. Anthony Fauci won't be dismissed out of court on spurious or dubious grounds. We saw in Missouri v. Biden already that Fauci was not considered to be a credible witness when it comes to the lab leak theory. There's a good reason for that. It wasn't simply that he had a faulty memory like former President Joe Biden. It was because he was tied indirectly to funding the Wuhan laboratory that was conducting gain-of-function research according to scientific protocol. And as Fauci even characterized on a few occasions, his own words in his so-called diary, and his fingerprints are all over it, running through EcoHealth Alliance and Dr. Peter Daszak. People are wondering why he won't be called to testify. Maybe he will. And also an associate of Fauci's who said that she had deleted tons of emails. That is destroying government records. And if she did so at the direction of Fauci, that's another slate of criminal charges. Now, the auto pen pardon from President Joe Biden at the time, we'll have to see if that holds up in court. It hasn't been tested yet, but the Constitution says that the president has to be present at the auto pen, at the pardon, and the auto pen does not work in his absence. So he has to authorize it personally and has to be in the presence of the pardon. So that's according to the Constitution. And so why this hasn't been brought up yet is an interesting question, but we might have had a trap set for Fauci, because the contempt of Congress charges hinges in some part on his pardon, because he was not in criminal jeopardy of acting as a witness against himself under the Fifth Amendment at the time for past crimes. And he gave a speech. He slammed Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. He denied some of the accusations, and then he pled the Fifth. So this is a breach of protocol. This is not how you're supposed to plead the Fifth at a congressional hearing. So he is, according to the record, vulnerable to contempt of Congress charges. This wouldn't be the only time it's happened in recent history. There's been a number of cases. Of course, Trump's allies, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, were hit with various charges related to their testimony in Congress. So we'll have to see if Dr. Anthony Fauci shares a similar fate. Many people think that he should be held criminally accountable for misleading the public and for his role in indirectly funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan laboratory, where many people and U.S. government agencies believe the COVID pandemic originated. And that was also covered up by the Chinese Communist Party. The government of China, they are an authoritarian adversary of the United States and free countries around the world. So why would Dr. Fauci be assisting in research that obviously had dual use purposes and easily could have been surveilled by the totalitarian Chinese state? It smacks of a lot worse charges than simply contempt of Congress. I do believe that this is one of the greatest and most egregious crimes against humanity in recent history that has been furthered by the U.S. government that was then controlled by the Biden administration. Even the Trump administration, the states there had also violated the rights of the American people: freedom of travel, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and also you could argue violations of informed consent, because of the way that certain mandates were carried out at the government level. And so it wasn't a matter of private enterprise that was setting policies. It was the U.S. government itself. You could argue that was coercion. And therefore, there should be some accountability for this. The American people are craving it. The damage is still ongoing. We saw some statistics about the children who were caught up in the crossfire of this pandemic response controversy. And you can see that a lot of the excess deaths, the mortality rates, were much higher due to indirect manifestations of the pandemic response, including certain types of substance abuse and related problems with that were higher for younger age demographics. And so there is a lot of ongoing repercussions for the pandemic response. People are still suffering from the after effects of it, and it would do a lot of good for the catharsis of this country and to restore constitutional norms in order to hold people criminally accountable if they knowingly and willingly misled the American people to further ulterior motives, whether it be that of the U.S. government or certain companies that were benefiting financially off of the pandemic response. So that should be a matter of justice. It should be open and shut case, and it should be heard before a court of law. That's my opinion. Weigh in with your own. We always appreciate hearing from you at the Becker Brief.